Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Rosie, and today I am super excited for this video. I have read over 50 books so far this year, and somehow I have managed to break it down to 10 books to recommend to you all today. I thought that this would be a fun video since I am new here on BookTube and I haven't done monthly reading wrap-ups for the first 3 months of the year. I am planning to do monthly reading wrap-ups moving forward, so definitely keep an eye out for those. One will be coming up soon because somehow we're already moving our way through April. I am new here. If you didn't see my first video, it was the BookTube newbie tag video. You can check it out here. I don't know, I'm new here. I'm guessing that's where it goes. Here, up there, somewhere. You can check it out on my page. I had so much fun doing that video, and I appreciate all of the love that was shared on that video. So hopefully y'all enjoy this one too. If you do, be sure to like and subscribe for more. And let's jump into it. Also, before we jump into this video, I want to say that after reading 50 plus books so far this year, the books that I'm going to be talking about today aren't necessarily my favorites, but they are the ones that I would recommend. So keep that in mind and we'll chat more. But yeah, let's jump into it. The first book that I want to talk about was actually the first book I read in 2023, and it was Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. If you know Talia Hibbert, you most likely know her from her Brown Sisters trilogy books, which are incredible. If you haven't read those, go and check them out. They have wonderful representation. They are adult books and they are kind of spicy, so keep that in mind. But Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute was Talia Hibbert's debut YA book, and I really enjoyed it. I actually did get an ARC on NetGalley, and I somehow didn't get to the ARC until right before it published at the beginning of the year, but I did read it, and it was super fun. And this follows Celine and Brad, who used to be childhood best friends. Now they're academic rivals, and they both enter into a scholarship that includes the kind of like wilderness survival challenge. And since they're both in the scholarship, they are both on the wilderness retreat and have to work together. And this book was super cute. Celine is a fat Black main character, and she is so funny. She also has a TikTok where she talks about conspiracy theories, and she's just like, I love her. She's so funny. And Brad is our Black main male character, and he has OCD, so it has really wonderful mental health representation. I also want to say, like, if there are YA romance movie gods out there, please pick up this book, because this book would be perfect for a movie. Think like To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It would just be so cute. The wilderness, the banter, I would love to see it made into a movie. So, romance gods, YA book gods, movie gods, please, please. So yes, I would highly recommend Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. Highly. It is 420, so maybe highly is the word of the day. Who knows? Anyway, I would definitely recommend this book. I would also really recommend Talia Hibbert's Brown Sisters trilogy, which I read last year, so they're not included, but technically a little plug. Yes, so the next book is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And Legends and Lattes follows Viv, who is an orc, and she's a retired adventurer who wants to settle down and open a coffee shop in a little village, but none of the villagers know what coffee is, and it is delightful. It is the first, of course the dog is gonna decide that now is the time to play with her chew toy. What is that doing? Okay, we are back from Stingray Attack Dog. Yes, so Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. If you are at all on Cozy Book Talk, Cozy BookTube, Cozy Bookstagram, anything cozy fantasy, you have seen Legends and Lattes recommended. If you are not, I am here to recommend it to you. Legends and Lattes is the perfect introduction into the cozy fantasy genre, and cozy fantasy is fantasy that is like super low stakes. So not the epic fantasy, not big battles and big world building, anything like that. Just kind of homey, cozy vibe, something easy, something lighthearted, and that is what is at the core of Legends and Lattes. So Legends and Lattes follows Viv, who is an orc, and she is a retired adventurer, or she's in the process of retiring. She wants to settle down in a village and open up a coffee shop, but none of the villagers know about coffee. They don't know anything about coffee or coffee shops. So we follow Viv as she opens this coffee shop and makes friends with the people in the community that she's settling down in. This book is so wholesome. It's so cozy. It is lighthearted. It's also the perfect book for anybody who loves coffee, because Viv loves coffee and she is sharing coffee with people in this village for the first time. And it's so fun to see like other people come to love coffee and coffee shops, and that's me. I did work at a coffee shop. I was a barista in undergrad for 2 or 3 years. So I love coffee, and coffee shops have like a really special place in my heart for that reason. So this book was right up my alley, and I think it'll be right up a lot of people's alleys because it was so, so good. There also was a really surprising sapphic love, sapphic romance subplot, which I was not expecting and was thrilled when it happened. I hadn't seen that included in any recommendations. I don't think it's a spoiler, but I will say it was really wonderful to see and so cute and just added so much more to this cozy fantasy book. And there is a second one coming out, or a companion. I think it's a prequel actually, of Viv as an adventurer. And I'm so excited to read that one because it should be super fun. The next book that I want to recommend is a total turn from cozy fantasy into romance, and that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. How I had not read this book sooner, I do not know, because it was so good. Tia Williams is just a really beautiful writer, and I'm really excited to read the rest of her work because she is a new to me author. After reading 7 Days in June, I'm totally hooked that she is an auto-buy author for me now. So 7 Days in June follows Eva and Shane, who as teenagers both were going through it. They had a lot that they were going through as teenagers, and they met and had a very brief but very intense romance relationship for 7 Days in June, as it would state. And then they were torn apart by various circumstances, and they both ended up becoming authors. In their adult life, they are reunited at an author event and kind of have to deal with what this relationship meant, what the circumstances were that tore them apart, and it is a second chance romance story. This book was packed so full of so many emotions. I cried, I was laughing, I just felt so deeply for these characters, and Tia Williams really just had a mastery to do that. Eva and Shane are both writers, and throughout the story we learn about how they kind of wove their love story with one another and their experiences with one another into their characters. And I just love when authors write characters who are writers, and we see that kind of like meta commentary on how past experiences might be woven in ways that we don't expect. And I think that's like just a fun thing. If that's a trope where characters are writers or characters are involved in the book world, I really enjoy that trope. I really love it. And this had that, which made it just an added plus in my book. I would say to check the trigger warnings on this because some of the content is really heavy and can be kind of not what you would expect in a romance novel, but the romance is there, the chemistry is there, the slow burn is there, and it was so good. So I would highly recommend 7 Days in June by Tia Williams for any romance readers out there who are looking for something that is like a little bit deeper than some of the other romance books that are on the market. It's definitely not a romantic comedy. It's like romantic drama, if that is a category that we still follow. The next book that I want to recommend is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. How I had also not read this book sooner, I do not know. I don't know what was going on with me and these second chance romance books. I love second chance romance, so reading both 7 Days in June and Love in Other Words in a pretty close succession. I didn't read them back to back, but within a month of each other, just like my romance heart was full of all of the second chance romance emotions that I really love in the trope. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is actually a signed copy. I met Christina Lauren when they were promoting Something Wilder when it was being published. What do I even say about this book? I love it so much. I both have the physical copy and I listened to the audio version, which was also phenomenal. This book follows Macy and Elliot, who are childhood neighbors, best friends, and fall in love in their teenage years, and then they are also torn apart by circumstances, as would happen in most second chance romance books, and reunited as adults and have to grapple with what tore them apart and what being reunited means and where they're at in their life now, even though like they're meant for each other. They are soulmates. I would really, really, really recommend this book to anybody who loves words. Macy and Elliot are voracious readers growing up. Kind of like, it kind of gives me like Jess and Rory vibes with how much they love to read and talk about it. Jess and Rory from Gilmore Girls, which I'm a Jess girl. Elliot's probably not as like moody as Jess, but nonetheless, with how much they love to read, it gave me Jess and Rory vibes. But I'd recommend this for anyone who loves words because they pick like favorite word of the day or favorite word of the week since they last saw each other, and check in with each other that way. Like, what's your favorite word today? And I just love that. I thought that was so cute and meaningful and a really good commentary on the power that certain words hold for us at certain points in our lives. So yes, I also want to say I would love to see this movie, but I truly love this book so much that I'm like scared if they made a movie it wouldn't be as good as it is, because I love it and I recommend it. Okay, moving away from romance and into a collection of essays, memoir, I want to recommend Greedy, Notes from a Bisexual Who Wants Too Much by Jen Winston. I listened to the audio version of this, which I would really recommend. I'm a huge fan of anytime an author is the narrator of an audiobook, listening to the audio version, because I just find it so much more powerful to listen to an author's words spoken. I think they speak so much meaning into the words beyond what's just conveyed on a page. So if that's an option, I'm always going to take it up. And Jen narrates Greedy, and I read the reviews for this, and a lot of people seemed really caught off guard by Jen's kind of colloquial writing or unstructured way that the essays were put together in the print version. Since I read the audio version, this felt like a really natural conversation, and I wasn't like distracted by that at all. So I think the form lends itself to audio version more than maybe it does the print version. Although I can't say for sure because I don't have the print copy. I haven't seen it. But Greedy is a collection of essays that talks about Jen's experience with their queer identity, with bisexuality, with being an adult and in love and dating in a city, with sex, with just so many different things. And I think they're is something in this book that would resonate with a lot of people. Jen provided words or quotes from her experiences into my experiences that I had felt alone or isolated in, or didn't know other people had that experience or felt that way until I read this book and until Jen was talking about their experience with it. So I would really recommend this. Keeping with this variety of genres, the next book that I want to recommend is The Love Songs of W.E.B. DuBois by Honoré Fanon Jeffers. Honoré is a poet, a very highly lauded poet, and this book is a masterclass in writing. The prose is so lyrical. There is so much going on in this book, and it's a hefty book. Like, this is a lot of pages to write, and it's so beautifully written and well done, and was a winner of I believe many awards, and it should be, because it's very good. It is a very heavy book. The content is very heavy. The premise of the book is that it follows our main character, Ailey Pearl Garfield, and she is a young girl growing up in a northern city with southern roots and family. And not only are we following Ailey in present day times, but we're also learning about Ailey's ancestors. It's a multi-generational book that covers the span of pre-colonial times in what is now known as America, through colonial times, through enslavement, through emancipation and Reconstruction, through the Civil Rights Movement, and into the present. So there's a lot going on. With that, there's a lot of trauma that occurs, because even though this is a work of fiction, it is an extremely well-researched work of fiction, and the stories that are included are true to things that happened in real life at these different eras of history. So for that reason, it's heavy, and I would say check the content warning so you know what you're getting into. However, this is a must-read book. Even though it's heavy and it is fiction, so much of the things that happen in this book happened in real life. And that's why I would recommend it, because I'm a historian and I'm used to reading history books that have footnotes and sources and the research there, and academic history books are written with a formula. I'm used to those, but a lot of people aren't. So I would recommend this book if you are interested in history, but you feel like fiction might be a more accessible way into it, and you really need that kind of writing piece to draw you into learning about history. I would recommend this book. I don't know what else to say about it. There's so much to say about this book, and like, it could truly be its own video. There are a lot of really wonderful conversations, YouTube videos, programs that Honoré has done and did after she published this book and some of her other works that I would highly, highly recommend you go and watch it before you read this, after you read this, if you're just interested. Sticking with a book that is fiction but very clearly influenced by history is A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. This book is a fantasy book, and it's a standalone fantasy book, which I found really refreshing because I'm a huge fantasy fan, but getting into a fantasy series can be daunting. Knowing like there are 7 books in this series, even a trilogy, knowing there are 3 books ahead of you can be daunting when you really just kind of want something to read right now, especially if you have a large TBR and you're trying to work through it. So I found it really refreshing to read a standalone fantasy book and kind of be able to throw myself into it at the present moment, but then know that I was going to read it, I was going to enjoy it, I was going to move on. And this book caught me from page 1. Alison Saft's writing is so atmospheric, so beautiful, really captured me. And just from the way that she was writing on page 1, I said, this is going to be a book that I'm going to enjoy. I knew from the very beginning. So this book follows Margaret, who is a teenage girl living in a mansion on the outskirts of town, and her mother is one of the most famous alchemists in the country that they are in. She's also absent, out doing her research. So Weston, who is an aspiring alchemist, comes to visit and wants to be a prodigy of Margaret's mother. However, Margaret's mother isn't there. At the same time that Margaret and Weston meet each other, Margaret also sees the Hala, which is a magical fox, and that brings on the half-moon hunt, which is something that happens every time the Hala is seen. And in the half-moon hunt, one hunter and one alchemist can enter together to hunt the Hala. So, of course, Margaret and Weston join together to hunt the Hala for their own separate reasons, thinking they can use one another as a means to an end to accomplish their goals and to win the hunt. This book is very clearly based off of early 20th century immigration and religious oppression and racism, early 20th century oppression that was going on in the United States. Even though it is a fantasy, it's very clear the religions, the places that these characters are coded as, just their names have been changed, the places have been changed. So that's kind of the gist of the book. I would really recommend this book. I really enjoyed reading this book. I didn't rate it 5 stars because there were some things that took me out of it. Like I said, since it so closely mirrors what was going on in early 20th century United States, there is not contingency that that's the time period in the fantasy land. Like, there are cars, there are modern day terms that are thrown in, and it's kind of like that piece of it drew me out of it. So I rated it 4 stars. However, I think I will do a reread of this book. It would be a really good book for kind of fall time, since it is atmospheric. It kind of has that fall vibes, and I do see myself doing a reread of this book, and I absolutely would recommend it, even though it was only a 4-star read. That's okay. Sometimes that happens. Like I said at the beginning, not every book in this list is like my favorite book of all time, but they are books that I would recommend, and I have recommended this to a friend since I read it. Another book that I have recommended since I read, and a book that I don't think I have shut up talking about since I read, in fact, is Once There Are Wolves by Charlotte McConney. When I tell you guys, I don't like to be scared. I don't like horror. I don't like psychological thrillers. My anxiety is too high for that sort of stuff. So I went into this blind. I think I went into this off of a recommendation for atmospheric reads, and I wonder if it wasn't the same TikTok that I found A Far Wilder Magic on. I wish I could find it so I could give that creator a shout out. But yeah, this was described as an atmospheric read, so I said, cool. I kind of read a description. Follows our main character, Inti, who is leading a reintroduction program of wolves into the Scottish Highlands. And I said, wolves, cool, Scottish Highlands, love, let's read it. And I went in pretty much blind besides that. And this is a thriller, and I did not know that. I read this book in one sitting. I could not put this book down. I was so hooked. And not only is there plot going on of like, somebody winds up dead, who did it, what did it, can we get to the bottom of it? There's so much going on in this book besides just that. This book is basically an ode to the environment, and it's also commentary on what it means to be wild, what it means to be a monster. Inti is a huge fan of the wolves, and a lot of people in this small town Highlands village are not fans of the wolves. So it's a commentary on like, if humanity is the monster, or if wolves are the monster, and Yeah, I read an ebook version of this, and I knew immediately after I read it that I wanted a physical copy because there were so many quotes in this book that stood out to me. There were so many things that I wanted to annotate, and I knew I was going to have to do a reread, and I knew I was going to have to like dive deep into this book because there's so much going on besides what you think you're getting in the beginning. And I actually went to Barnes & Noble and I was specifically looking for it and I couldn't find it. They didn't have it. And then a couple weeks later, I was at Goodwill and I found this Book of the Month version for $1.99. So I said, great, that's mine. And I definitely will be doing a reread of this soon. But I highly, highly recommend it, especially if like you kind of want to dip your toes into a thriller, but you're not sure you want to like, yeah, as somebody who had never read a thriller before, it was a really good first thriller because there were so many other things going on that I could like get into the thriller but also know what else was going on. And it definitely got me interested in reading other thrillers. So if you have any recommendations of something that's like kind of similar, let me know. I do know that Charlotte has another book that is really highly lauded and recommended called Migration. I have this thing about birds, which like is totally a me thing, but I'm not a huge fan of like flocks of birds, so I don't know if I can read it because like it's about birds and following a flock of birds, and like I don't know if that is in the cards for me, but I'll definitely be doing a reread of Once There Were Wolves. So what book is next? Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I went through a huge fantasy kick in March and Legendborn was part of that. It was another book that had been on my TBR for a really long time, and I'm really glad I finally got to it because it was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. It follows Bree Matthews, who enters a like residential program for high school students at UNC Chapel Hill, I believe. So it takes place on a college campus. It is also rooted in Arthurian myth. So King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table is kind of the premise for it. It is a YA book, and I did also only rate this book 4 stars because I'm not very familiar with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table or Arthurian myth and legend. And as I was reading this book, I was like, am I missing something? Like there is some explaining that goes on about that piece of it. But even after that, I felt like I was missing something about this Arthurian legend piece of it. But as an adult reading it, I was kind of confused, so I wonder if YA readers are also kind of confused, which is why I gave it 4 stars. But I do highly, highly recommend it. It follows Bree, who is grappling with the death of her mother and who stumbles upon a secret society and a world of magic that she didn't know existed and she didn't know she had a role in, and she is discovering what her role in this system is. She's also discovering if magic was involved in her mother's death. It also had a really wonderful African diasporic magic piece that I wasn't expecting that was included that I really, really enjoyed. So yeah, there was a lot going on in this book too, but Tracy Deonn did a really good job of like making it super intriguing, making the plot move. I felt like it moved very quickly. Before I knew it, it was over. And I'm really excited to read Bloodmarked. The final book that I want to recommend in this video is Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. So I read this book along with some others as part of the Trans Rights Readathon, and I highly, highly recommend it. We follow Felix, who is a trans boy in high school, as he is grappling with a anti-trans incident that occurred, and he's also grappling with the fluidity of identity and what it means to think one thing about yourself or think that you have a certain aspect of your identity figured out, and then come to realize that because identity is fluid, what you thought was true at one point was probably true at that point, but might have changed or might have morphed into something, evolved and grown into something else. And I just really appreciated the book for that aspect. It was something I hadn't thought about yet. And I really I really appreciate that it encouraged me to think about those things and to think about transness and fluidity and queerness in that way. And it was also a really beautiful story, and I also really, really love the cover. It's such a beautiful cover. Yeah, that is my last recommendation for this video. Somehow we have already recommended 10 books. I highly recommend all of these books. If you check any of them out, let me know. Drop a comment, stop by my Bookstagram at Rosie Rose Reads on Instagram, and let me know if you liked them or what you thought of them. I would love to have more conversations with people about these books. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making it. I can't wait for the next one. I have a couple ideas that I've been bouncing around and planning for future videos. So if you liked this one, drop a comment, like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And until we meet again, I hope you have a 5-star read. Bye.